That if he does become a one-term senator, that won't be the end of his life, and he's not up for 4 more years. So he has a long time to see how it shakes out for him.
Indeed, Nancy, I want to play for you some of Romney with Chris Wallace.
You realize this is war. Donald Trump will never forgive you for this.
There's a hymn that is sung in my church. It's an old Protestant hymn, which is do what is right, let the consequence follow. I know in my heart that I'm doing what's right. I understand there's going to be enormous consequence, and I don't have a choice in that regard.
Nancy, that is kind of similar talk to heads on a pike.
Yeah, it's interesting. I do think that, the president came out on Twitter shortly after Romney gave his address. And already early this evening, there was a video that went up on the president's Twitter account mocking Romney. I was told that was not produced this afternoon, but obviously it had been something that people in the White House have been anticipating for a while. And I think the president is supposed to deliver these impeachment remarks tomorrow noon in the East Room at the White House. And I think what will be really interesting is whether the president follows the advice of some advisors and lets the State of the Union speak for itself and the acquittal speaks for itself and just move.
Folks, you don't understand what we're seeing here. All of this on TV, this is a comic strip. These folks represent the hidden hand. And Donald Trump is just the Charlie Brown of the hidden hand. And basically, we're being shown that we live in a fascist oligarchic state. And we have been since George Washington. George Washington, who stole land. I mean, what was his job? He was a surveyor. He was in the French and Indian War. His whole thing was about being a rich guy, slave owner, And this whole thing is just...
They were using the troops as a political prop, but it was a sort of a dicey and difficult moment for that family and for those kids. I mean, they haven't seen the dad in 9 months, and I would have wished that moment would have been private, and then we would have lauded the family and their service in public. I also thought, Brian, frankly, that giving Rush Limbaugh the Presidential Medal of Freedom was inappropriate. I mean, he's not Rosa Parks. Imagine what Republicans would have said if a Democratic president would have given the Presidential Medal of Freedom at the State of the Union to someone like Michael Moore. As much as we like Michael Moore, appreciate his humor and some of the points he makes, the Presidential Medal of Freedom, I mean, come on.
On that note, to Annie Carney, to Nancy Cook, to Jeremy Bash, our thanks after a long day in Washington on this Wednesday night for joining us. Coming up for us, what it's really like to cast a politically...
Come on, folks, step up in every day and every way. Take the piece of the earth and make it stronger. All of this that you see on television, CNN, MSNBC, ABC, Fox, it's all just theater. It's theater, right? It's theater, right? It's theater. That's all it is. It's theater. It's selling food, fast food. This is death. This is, we are being controlled. Look at the image that's underneath, right? I have it so it is pixelating. And this is the stuff that is, cerebrally going into your subconscious. See that little flashing pattern? That's controlling your freaking mind, So, it's good luck with that, right? What's this girl say?
It was so far above and beyond anything that the Democrats are frankly capable of that, instead of acting like a mature stateswoman, Nancy Pelosi went into a fit of rage and like a spoiled child tore up the State of the Union address for the whole world to see. And the media? Oh, the media loved it, of course.
The only only way to communicate that visually was to rip up the speech, which was useless because it was full of lies. And she's fed up.
Of all the Democratic responses I have seen in my lifetime, that was the most effective.
The Speaker has consistently found a dignified way to make clear that she is not going to normalize the president's behavior. I'm proud of her.
Nancy Pelosi has done it again.
And yet, remember when Nancy Pelosi said this about the president and his impeachment?
This president is impeached for life, regardless of any gamesmanship on the part of Mitch McConnell. He will be impeached forever. When someone is impeached, they are always impeached. It cannot be erased.
So why did they impeach this guy for the stuff he did do? You know, the bombings, the killings, the, amalgamants, the taking of the money, the always being, the dude. Here he is, the dude,
One will forget that. And that's the asterisk next to your name. Of course, Nancy wasn't the only one with poor behavior last night. The squad was out with their negativity in full force.
Made and grown right here in the USA.
Congresswoman Rashida Tlaib, who is one of the, we now know are getting further reports, many members of Congress who walked out of tonight's State of the Union address.
Such a joke. They had to, pretend that this was some kind of Oprah moment.
Wait a second. The left says President Trump is the one that's divisive, right?
Relentless optimism, working together. What have they done with President Trump?
Really designed to be further divisive in the country. There was a lie on every page.
It was a really divisive speech.
More campaign-like and partisan than any I've covered. I cannot underscore how poisonous the atmosphere in here felt throughout this speech.
Not aimed in for most of it on uniting the room.
Okay, so here's my question. Why doesn't the liberal media, or why do they, should I say, why do they get to decide who's actually being divisive? I mean,
what you don't realize, gang, that left, right is two wings of the same corporate plutocratic bird. We, the people, have the power. We just never use it. We just
say he's being divisive.
These morons tell us what to think.
I say he gave a unifying speech. It was a wonderful speech. He, on a number of occasions, had guests there that sent a very clear message. He had the legitimate leader of Venezuela. He had a young man who
we met with today, by the way.
Right. He had a young man who wanted to be an astronaut, and by the way, his grandfather was a Tuskegee airman and fought in World War II, and the president promoted him to brigadier general. He had reunited a military family. It was just one touching moment after another that united this country, and yet the response from the Democrats. So you didn't need to look at a response speech. You actually got to see it right there with Nancy Pelosi as the president stood in front of her when she ripped up that speech. That's the divisiveness. That's what we are fighting here in Congress.
To the people that were there that night in attendance, that were guests of the president, and how insulting was it to America?
But it's a great visual because that's what we have been putting up with for years here in Congress, and I think the American people saw it so clearly.
And these guys are right. I mean, there is no difference between left, right, and center. Fake news. That's what this is. That's what this is. But so is, this. So is this. So is that. What's this guy saying?
When times are flush, you want to be putting some money in the bank because everything's going well, so you're saving. So if something goes wrong, somebody gets sick, somebody loses their job, somebody goes to college, you have money to spend. So the answer is when times are good, like now, you should be balancing the budget. When times are tough, like 2008, 2009, you have to be able to take money out of the bank to pay for the health insurance, to pay for the unemployment, to pay for school. That's just the same with us. When times are tough.
In fact, we all had a good laugh when we stood up to cheer President Obama, and they said, "Look at all the Republicans cheering him." But that was how it was, and to see the incredible divisiveness is disheartening. And so, what we have to do is go back to focusing on our jobs, on our oaths, which is not to worry about party or.
This is all being scripted. Nothing on this screen is just someone's opinion. Everything is scripted. And what is coming down the pike is civil war. That's what the powers that shouldn't be want. They want everyone at each other's throats,
Not going particularly well so far. And why is Tom Perez still the chairman of the Democratic National Committee? I have no idea. This party needs to wake up. There's only one moral imperative in this country right now, and that is to beat Donald Trump. That's the only moral imperative. It's the only thing I want to hear.
That is not the moral imperative. The moral imperative is that everyone works together. Everyone feels and empathizes with what's on that other side of the door. We're heading towards 10 months of the window of opportunity. When that sucking sound starts to happen, well, this is just one of those quickies. Hopefully it gets up. Hopefully you appreciate it. Hopefully you use these quickies to be that doorway. This is the doorway into your superconscious mind. What's on the other side of the doorway is your soul, and that you will do the thing that is righteous for your soul. Well, this is your Sensei Al Bob wishing you good morning, good night, good afternoon, wherever you are. Join us. Live a life of love's co-creation.